from the heart of where innovation, money, and power collide. In Silicon Valley and beyond, this is Bloomberg Technology with Emily Chang.
I'm Emily Chang in San Francisco, and this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up in the next hour, risky business on a day when the world's most powerful banking standard setter calls Bitcoin the riskiest of assets. I'm talking to crypto investor Alexis Ohanian and the CEO of BlockFi, Zach Prince. We'll have thoughts from both on the wild price swings and broader crypto adoption. Plus, start your engines. Apple has hired a former BMW executive for its rebooted car project, a sign that the iPhone maker is determined to build a self-driving electric car to rival Tesla. More on this Bloomberg scoop. And Blue Origin will soon announce the auction winner, who will ride aboard the New Shepard rocket's first human flight to space, along with the Bezos brothers. We'll have all the details. Those stories in a moment, but first, U.S. stocks climbing to a record. Let's get the latest with Bloomberg's Kriti Gupta in New York. Kriti, take it away.
Well, Ed, Emily, we'll get to Ed in a second. Emily, you are seeing green on the screen, and a lot of it has to do with tech, an intraday record high, and big tech leading the way higher, with the exception of Apple. Just take a look at the chart behind me, or the board behind me, I should say. S&P 500 in the green, a broad rally. The NASDAQ 100 doing even better, and semis doing even better than that. So tech outperformance was really the story. And this is interesting that we're starting to see that defensive bid come back into vogue because treasuries are following the same pattern. You are looking at yields that are dropping lower and lower, dropping below that range. You can see they've kind of been trading sideways, now taking a firm drop lower. Once again, that defensive bid really pricing in what comes after this reopening when that economic momentum slows just a little bit. And that brings me to some of the other pockets of tech, because you had a little bit of mixed picture outside of those major benchmarks. You had the NASDAQ Biotech Index doing pretty well, in line with that broad rally. Healthcare was at the top of those sector movers. You also had the Golden Dragon Index trading in line with some of those big tech names as well. Of course, we know that holds a lot of those Chinese ADRs. And lastly, electric vehicles down 0.5%. This was the notable underperformer, not trading in line with tech, but did trade in line with Apple, which is a pretty interesting tidbit there. So that's the macro story, Emily. For the micro, let's get to Ed Ludlow.
That sounds like a pretty nice day in the markets. Let's bring the volatility, which was in meme stocks. GameStop down 27%, biggest drop since March following earnings on Wednesday. It's going to come back to market with a stock offering $5 billion. It's going to disclose an SEC investigation, something the market doesn't like, but we know this is largely Reddit traders. We know this is a meme stock. We know this is retail traders. AMC following in the coattails, down 13%. Insiders selling almost $5 million worth of shares on Wednesday, according to regulatory filings. When I talk about volatility, I like to put it in context, as you know, Emily. So come into my Bloomberg terminal and look at this chart. The white and yellow lines are 20-day volatility for AMC and GameStop. What's that blue line? Bitcoin. Wild swings in Bitcoin? No, not compared to those meme stocks that we're talking about. Actually, it's been relatively calm when it comes to Bitcoin. Come back to me in the studio, though, because when it comes to news flow, it's been a roller coaster 7 days. I want to take a look at this trough. This trough is where we were talking about a technical correction, how far Bitcoin had fallen from its April peak. It's when people started to consider and have doubts about where Bitcoin could be used in this world. Rally. 7 days. Today we're up around a range of 38,000 to 36,000. Why? Because the global banking regulator is thinking about it. It's saying banks that deal in cryptocurrencies should have capital reserves. And just that recognition that an institutional regulator has an eye on cryptocurrencies, that's enough to boost the market. Lots of dynamic news flow when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Emily.
All right, Ed, thanks for the context. Kriti as well. Appreciate it. Sticking with crypto, you may remember U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren's comments Wednesday this hour when she called for more hearings, more oversight, and new ways to help protect consumers. Take a listen.
Banks either holding Bitcoin, that becomes an issue that we need to talk about with the bank regulators. So there are a lot of different pieces to this, and I think the answer that we saw today is that right now, our regulators and, frankly, our Congress is an hour late and a dollar short, and we need to catch up with where these cryptocurrencies are going.
For reaction and the outlook on crypto and the recent volatility, let's turn to BlockFi CEO Zach Prince. Zach, thank you so much for joining us. So look, Senator Warren also called the crypto landscape the wild, wild west. What's your response to her?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And, I was able to tune in to parts of the hearing yesterday. And I think that the overarching theme that we should keep in mind here is that this is part of the natural evolution of new technologies. And the fact that we're having hearings like this and starting to talk about cryptocurrencies and a digital dollar is a very positive trend overall for the sector. I really appreciated former CFTC Chairman Chris Giancarlo's comments. He's actually on our board at the hearing, where he encouraged us and regulators to think about not just what could go wrong, but also what could go right as we build structures and think about ways that leveraging this technology can help our society and the financial standing of the American economy. And lastly, I would say that sometimes folks can miss the forest through the trees a little bit when talking about cryptocurrency. I agree with Elizabeth Warren that there's a lot of things going on here. I would encourage us not to forget some basic facts, which include that this is an asset class that has generated substantial wealth for millions of Americans. It's been the best performing asset class in 7 out of the last 10 years, and that the cryptocurrency sector is also a thriving sector, creating lots of jobs at BlockFi and many, many other companies across our country, and that this is something that we want to continue to happen in America.
So let's talk about the forest. The IMF spokesperson saying El Salvador's adoption of Bitcoin certainly significant, but also raises a number of macroeconomic and legal issues. On the other side, we also have these ransomware hacks that have asked for ransom to be paid in cryptocurrency, and it's certainly increased skepticism around cryptocurrency itself. Not that cryptocurrency is itself to blame. How do you think impending regulation, because there will be regulation, how do you expect that to impact your business?
I expect it to be positive for BlockFi's business and for the sector. Regulatory clarity enables companies like BlockFi to continue innovating. It enables consumers and investors to participate in this sector with the utmost confidence. And from the early days of BlockFi, we've leaned into regulation. We were the first company to get licensed to make US dollar loans secured by cryptocurrency as collateral across the US. And that's just one area where we've worked hand in hand with state, federal, and enforcement agencies to help facilitate education and create structures that work for this industry, just like the structures that have worked for traditional financial markets.
You just launched a new institutional investor platform, which I know you said clients were asking for. This on the backdrop of a lot of volatility. And I'm curious, how many of your customers are making money? How many are losing money, and how much?
Yeah, so on average, our customers do very, very well. On the retail side of BlockFi's platform, our average account balance for a client that held assets at BlockFi a year ago was $10,000, and today it's $50,000. And part of that is from folks getting comfortable with our products and depositing more funds, but a lot of it is from the performance of the assets that we enable individuals to hold on our platform. The announcement of BlockFi Prime as a new institutional offering is something that's really, really exciting, and it's going to enable our institutional clients who have traditionally been borrowers coming to BlockFi for financing and to help promote capital efficiency for their crypto market activities to now also trade with us. It's going to create better liquidity and better pricing, and also help us to expand our addressable market in terms of the types of firms that we can work with.
There's a report that investors are also excited, a report coming from the information that you're raising new money at a $5 billion valuation. What can you tell us about that?
Unfortunately, I can't comment on the specifics of what we might be doing in capital markets. I will say that we are generally very active. We have a very exciting future at BlockFi. There are lots of new things that we're working on, including a product that I'm most excited about, which is the Bitcoin Rewards credit card. It'll be the first Bitcoin Rewards credit card in the market. It's rolling out publicly imminently. And in addition to anything that we might do in private capital markets, we're also very excited about potentially entering public markets and enabling more folks to participate in the phenomenal growth that we've experienced as a company.
All right, Zach, thanks for the demo there. Zach Prince, BlockFi CEO. Appreciate you taking the time to join us. Okay. In other news, Apple has hired a former BMW executive for its rebooted car project, a sign the iPhone maker is determined to build a self-driving electric car to rival Tesla. Ulrich Kranz is a former senior executive at BMW AG's electric car division. We'll have more on this Bloomberg scoop from our very own Mark Gurman a little later this hour. Coming up, GameStop shares taking a tumble today after the company named a new executive team but shared few details about their turnaround plan. We'll have the latest next. This is Bloomberg. Stock drop and an unclear strategy. That's the recent story of GameStop. The video game retailer has tapped a pair of Amazon executives to lead the company. It also may sell millions of additional shares as part of a plan to convert the video game chain into an e-commerce powerhouse. That didn't seem to sit well with some current investors. Others were clearly excited. Shares falling, though, ultimately 27% on the day. Wedbush analyst Michael Pachter with us now to talk about all the moves. So how hopeful are you about this new Amazon team?
Oh, I'm actually pretty impressed by them. Ryan Cohen hasn't told us his strategy, but clearly it's to expand the e-commerce offering, and every single one of his new hires has been e-commerce background, 3 from Amazon. So, very capable executives. And, to his credit, running a $20 billion company is probably a bit more complex than running a $300 million company. He's out with the old and with the new, and all these people are 10 to 20 year experienced in e-commerce, so they're all going to be fine. I'm optimistic that they'll actually execute well.
And yet your target is $50, right? Which is well below the $220 it's trading at now. I mean, explain the gap between Michael Pachter and the investment audience.
I think that, as you know, a meme stock is just something where people kind of talk about what could be. And in the case of a company like Tesla, going from 500,000 cars a year to 40 million is plausible. I mean, they probably won't do it, but they could. With GameStop, the meme is that they're going to transform the business and become some type of, blockchain platform that trades NFTs. And I'm not sure how they get there. Ryan Cohen is not going to reinvent the company and turn it into Amazon. They're not going to sell a bunch of stuff. I know he's posted tweets of soft serve ice cream and Ted the teddy bear, hitting a bong, but I don't expect they're going to sell cannabis or soft serve ice cream. So the truth is, maybe they grow revenue by 10 or 20 or 30% more than I've modeled, and maybe they make $2 a share instead of $1. You can get to maybe $75, but you just cannot get to 200 unless you think revenues are going to triple or quadruple. And I don't see how they get there. When he tells us the strategy, maybe I'll accept it and agree with it and endorse it. But I cannot base, fundamental valuation on something I don't know anything about.
The GameStop memes, Michael, are out of control. My favorite is the Twitter account that is literally called Ryan Cohen is my dad. You have been covering GameStop since 2002. How are you watching this just incredible investor reaction?
Well, I mean, I think it's healthy for the market, for people to get excited and, to bring new entrants into the market. When I got my COVID vaccine, the woman who gave me the shot asked me what I did, and I said I work in the market, and she said, "What do you think of GameStop?" And that was mid-February. The idea that somebody sticking a shot in my arm knows about GameStop, and her kid is invested, that's awesome. So, I think anything that makes, the average Joe aware that investing is an actual thing you can do is great. And I hope everybody who is long the stock gets out before they lose money. But, it's stocks go up, they go down. I don't really care.
We're talking to Alexis Ohanian later this hour, who, of course, co-founded Reddit. He's a GameStop investor. He believes in it. What's the best case scenario here? The best case scenario that you think GameStop can actually get to?
I actually need to be practical here. If Ryan Cohen had some, transformational strategy to get into the blockchain business, what did he need to buy a chain of 4,700 stores for? Like, what's the point? And, he bought the stock at 8 and he only bought 12% of the company. If he really thought it was worth $300 or $400 or $500 a share, why didn't he buy all the company? So I think there's a disconnect. And I actually think, in fact, he bought GameStop at 8, thinking he could take it up to 20 or 30 or 40, which was kind of the original Roaring Kitty, meme, Roaring Kitty thesis. I think that was right. I think it got away from him. I think his ego's gotten in the way, and now he's going to prove everybody, that he knows what he's doing. If there were a strategy, it's shocking that he hasn't told us. We were supposed to hear about this 5 months ago. What is such a secret? Do they have to kill us if they tell us? I am blown away that he's got a strategy that involves brick and mortar, and that anybody thinks it's going to take revenue up 4 or 5-fold. It's just not going to happen.
All right, well, we're asking for details on the strategy. We'll let you know if we get them. Michael Pachter, Wedbush, always good to have you here. Thank you. Coming up, as e-commerce continues to soar, shipping startup Shippo is now valued at $1 billion on a mission to solve the industry's biggest problems. We're going to speak to the co-founder and CEO in an exclusive interview next. Also raising funds, Chinese ride-hailing company Didi announcing it intends to list in the U.S. either on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange. Didi has 377 million annual active users and operates in nearly 4,000 cities, counties, and towns across 15 countries, of course, the biggest of which is China. This is Bloomberg. An update now on the cyber attack on the world's biggest meat producer. JBS has revealed it paid out $11 million to the hackers responsible for the attack that shut down operations in North America and Australia. The FBI attributed the incident to a Russian-linked group, the admission coming just days after the U.S. recovered almost all of the 75 Bitcoin ransom paid to hackers behind the attack on Colonial Pipeline. Meantime, riding an e-commerce boom largely driven by the pandemic, shipping startup Shippo is now valued at $1 billion. The company's mission, to provide an Amazon Prime-like experience for people not on Amazon. To discuss, we're joined now by Shippo co-founder and CEO Laura Behrens-Wu in an exclusive interview. So, Laura, you work with merchants who aren't on Amazon. Why should they choose Shippo if they're not?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there are a whole lot of e-commerce companies that are not selling on Amazon. And the reason for that is that they have their own brands, they have their own websites, they're using companies like Shopify and Stripe. And then when it comes to shipping, they're competing against Amazon, a retail giant, and the customer expectations that Amazon Prime has set. So these are exactly our customers. What we do for them is make sure that they can ship like a retail giant, that shipping is not too much cognitive overhead for them, and that they're competitive. And we've got customers from like tiny SMBs to larger mid-sized e-commerce brands, then also enterprise clients using our technology.
Now, obviously, we've just been through an incredibly difficult pandemic. Even the giants like Amazon experienced shipping challenges. I'm curious what challenges Shippo experienced, how you navigated those challenges, and if everything is back to normal now, or if there are still difficulties and delays in the system.
Yeah, so what we saw during the pandemic was that everyone started buying on the internet. So consumers, instead of walking into stores, they were buying online, they're buying on the internet. And I think that was actually an interesting opportunity for a lot of independent businesses, either independent businesses that were already online or businesses moving online for the very first time. And Amazon was starting to see some shipping delays, and also consumers had a lot more like awareness for wanting to buy and support, buy from and support independent retailers. So we saw a lot of our customers ship more than before, and both across new customers, but also existing customers. What we saw in the shipping industry, however, was that a lot of existing shipping providers were having a little bit of a hard time keeping up with these with this new capacity, and we've seen some delays, especially around Christmas. I think that's given the opportunity for new shipping providers to emerge. So in the venture space, I'm actually seeing a lot of funding for new shipping options, smaller shipping providers, and that then later on will give our customers just more choice, more options to be able to use different shipping providers depending on what they're best at. And I see that fragmentation as a new trend in the market.
And what are you seeing in terms of e-commerce trends? Like, are you seeing shopping online starting to plateau now that the world is opening up, or is it only going to increase now that these habits have been formed? Like, what does the second half of the year look like?
It's a good question. So the world has started to reopen again, and what we're seeing for our customers is that they're doing really well. I think these kinds of customer habits, they're here to stay. And I think the good news for e-commerce businesses is really that this trend of selling and buying on the internet is not a trend that happened because of the pandemic. It was that the industry was on that trajectory already, that more and more people were buying on the internet. And these kinds of new habits, we believe they're here to stay. I think e-commerce has reached a customer segment that was harder to reach previously. Like my parents are buying on the internet as an example. Everyone's buying on the internet, and they've experienced how convenient that is. And then shipping is just a way for the product to reach the consumer. The consumer is no longer walking into your store. You have to find a way for the package to arrive at the consumer's doorstep.
So, let's talk about the growth opportunities quickly outside the U.S. You are in Germany, France, the U.K., Canada, Australia. Where are we going to see you expand? Because this is obviously a global market.
I think that's exactly right. Like, shipping is a global business. Our vision is to make sure that with our platform, it doesn't matter where you are as a merchant, where your inventory is located, it doesn't matter where your customer is. You should be able to get your item from A to B without any geographical boundaries, any concerns. And right now we're in America and in Canada, a bunch of Western European countries. So we're really doubling down on that international expansion. More of Western Europe, starting to think about Latin America as well. And we want to build a global business here, really this infrastructure component in terms of like this global shipping network. Doesn't matter where you are or your customer are, you're able to ship and make sure the package arrives.
Okay. Shippo co-founder and CEO, Laura Behrens-Wu, will keep our eye on you. Thank you so much for joining us. Coming up, Reddit co-founder Alexis Ohanian is part of a new wave of VCs with his 776 fund. I caught up with the internet entrepreneur to talk about where he is placing his bets, GameStop, crypto, and more. That conversation next. Plus, and the winner is, we will find out this weekend as bids continue to roll in for the chance to join Jeff Bezos on Blue Origin's first passenger flight. Who will go up there with him? All the details coming up. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang in San Francisco. Time to look at some shakeups in the semiconductor space. Bloomberg's Ed Ludlow standing by with a Bloomberg scoop. Ed, take it away.
Yeah, this is Menlo Park-based SiFive. You probably haven't heard of them, but according to sources, Intel has come in with a more than $2 billion bid to take over company. Bring up some of the details because it's pretty interesting. We're hearing from sources multiple bids for this company. Some of them takeovers, some of them offers of investment. According to one source, the company might prefer to stay independent and this is a company that has come out of nowhere, grown really fast. But why am I talking about it? This chip company you've never heard of. Well, it's about what it does. It designs and licenses the designs of chips. Does that ring a bell? Because it's similar to what ARM does, the same chip arm of SoftBank that NVIDIA is trying to buy. If we bring up NVIDIA shares and look at them versus Intel, one of the bidders that we know for SiFive, you can clearly see outperformance of NVIDIA, this white line, versus Intel, versus the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index. The reason that there is so much interest in this deal for Intel to potentially buy SiFive is that they do the same thing. And one of the concerns around NVIDIA and ARM is that NVIDIA, if it's successful in buying ARM, may not share its capabilities with other customers that already are using ARM for chip design, chip licensing, open source platforms. So in comes SiFive, potentially a new player to watch out for in the semiconductor industry. Emily.
All right, Ed Ludlow, thanks so much. Great scoop. All right, Alexis Ohanian's newest venture capital firm, 776, is picking up steam. The VC firm raising $150 million in its first fundraising effort. Earlier, I spoke to the 776 founder and, of course, Reddit co-founder about where he is planning to put this new money to work.
I've been really fortunate, even in just the last, say 6 to 9 months, while we were still really building the firm out, building the team, great founders sought us out, and we've already been deploying capital in some great companies and pretty sector agnostic. At the end of the day, my best investments have always come from great founders who have told me what the future is going to be. It usually doesn't come from investors. So we're looking to back great founders, solving big problems in large markets, and basically any kind of startup goes.
Well, on that note, a key detail that stood out to me is the makeup of your LPs, 50% women, 15% Black or Indigenous investors. Do you see yourself as part of a new wave of VCs that's going to be doing things differently?
I think so. We're really just responding to what the very best founders are asking about more and more. They want to know who we're making money for. They want to know exactly what investors are going to be able to do for them. That's why we've built software into the way that we run the firm. That's why we thought about who our LP base would be. And, at the end of the day, we serve a community of founders. We serve a community that is our team. We also serve a community of LPs, of investors. And we feel like in order to be our best, we should have a community that's reflective of our country. And in that lens, it seems like a sort of obvious thing to do. And we're excited that, we did the work to make sure we got to those numbers, and think it'll pay off.
We just had the founder of Lolly on the show from the big Bitcoin conference.
Oh, yeah, from the conference in Miami.
Exactly, from the big conference in Miami. And I'm curious, there has obviously been a ton of volatility. There's talk of harsher regulation because of the tie between crypto and these ransomware attacks. Does that concern you?
I think at the end of the day, we have to take a global perspective. As a country, the United States needs to be a leader, especially in something as important as digital currency. And as you're seeing more and more countries actually adopting Bitcoin as tender, as you see more and more momentum towards what is ultimately a better user experience, right? At the end of the day, when you realize, for instance, how much money it costs just to send a wire, it's pretty preposterous, right? You're just moving ones and zeros. So I think we all should be leaning into the fact that as a technology, the improved user interface, the improved sort of user experience that crypto allows is better. And so I'd like to see the way that we approach this as being a way that we can capture basically more of the upside of the innovation that's going to be built on crypto and on blockchain technology, as opposed to smothering it, because it is not going away, and the momentum is only going to continue. And I want us to win. I want the US to win.
So look, I've had crypto founders on the show who say Bitcoin is going to the moon, that if you own one, you will be a millionaire. Where are you on the speculation spectrum?
Well, I've never been a Bitcoin maximalist. I do think I currently hold some Bitcoin. I hold quite a bit of Ethereum or of ETH, let's say, by comparison. I think there are some emerging technologies and currencies and protocols that are worth looking at. But look, I don't want to be giving financial advice here. At the end of the day, do your research. The reality, though, is this technology has crossed there's a tipping point now that's happened where enough people have bought in that it's not going away. And so now, something like Bitcoin, I think, is always going to be here as some kind of a store of value, digital gold, you often hear it referred to. And I'm more interested in sort of what are the technological applications that are going to be built on top of the blockchain, maybe involving Bitcoin, but maybe not, but that are going to improve user experiences. That's where the really, I think, the biggest and most enduring wins are going to happen.
We're seeing meme stocks extending their gains. We're seeing new meme stocks being added to the list of meme stocks. GameStop just had a big new announcement with a new leadership team, new CEO, new CFO. We've spoken to analysts who think, this company is not worth anything close to where it's trading right now, no matter how many Amazon executives you add at the top. What do you think about GameStop's potential?
Okay, full disclosure, I have shares. I've held shares for a minute now. I'd spend my time, in the private markets. I spend my time thinking a lot about the sort of underlying technology and the sort of potential of companies. I think in that regard, you have a brand that is well known. You have an executive team that you're seeing is getting increasingly more professionalized with, like you said, ex-Amazon folks, and I just generally feel like the energy around it. I know people are very dismissive of even the phrase meme stocks, but momentum investing is nothing new. And in a lot of ways, the story we're seeing play out ever since January, it's going to continue. It's only going to become more normal, frankly, as more and more people get access to investing, as more and more people spend more of their time online socializing and sharing ideas. This is a new normal. And, there is a dogged community of supporters who love the stock. And I think with that base and with the fact that gaming is still a pretty small, I think, relative to its potential size in the industry. I think there's a lot to like there. But look, the part that I hope folks take away from this is part of just a much bigger trend where capital is going to be deployed in ways that look very different to the ways that like my dad and certainly my granddad did it, because community is a big part of it. So whether it's investing in trading cards or investing in stocks or investing in cryptocurrencies, the portfolio of our generation, and especially Gen Z digital natives, is going to look very, very, very different.
776 founder there, Alexis Ohanian, on the back of his big new fundraise. You can catch the full interview at Bloomberg.com. Meantime, in China, more than 1,100 people have been arrested in a crackdown on the use of cryptocurrencies for money laundering. Government authorities say they busted more than 170 criminal groups laundering money. Searches for crypto exchanges on China's internet are currently being censored. Coming up, Apple switches into high gear as the company adds a new automotive veteran to lead its car project. We will have the scoop next. This is Bloomberg. As we mentioned a bit earlier, Apple appears to be ratcheting up efforts to develop a car that would compete with the likes of Tesla and other electric cars. According to a person familiar with the matter, the tech giant has hired a former BMW executive to help lead its self-driving car project, marking one of Apple's most significant automotive hires to date. With more on the big scoop, we've got Bloomberg Tech's Mark Gurman, of course. So who is this person and what will they be doing, Mark?
Yeah, Emily, thank you for having me. Apple hired Ulrich Kranz, and this is actually a big name in the automotive industry. He worked at BMW for about 30 years, ultimately becoming in charge of their electric car division, which produced the i3, that boxy-looking four-door BMW that's a hybrid, as well as the i8, the over $100,000 electric car / hybrid from BMW. Neither of those BMW models have become smash hits. The design of the i3 was criticized. The i8, for all intents and purposes, is not a very good car, but they are well designed, and those are cars that probably have inspired Apple to go into the field. And more recently, he was the co-founder and CEO of a self-driving electric car company called Canoo, and he also spent a few months as the CTO of Faraday Future.
What is Apple's relationship with BMW? I wonder if there's a backstory here.
Yeah, Apple has a good relationship with BMW. BMW was actually Apple's first partner 17 years ago on iPod, if you remember those, integration in cars. They were also Apple's first partner on Car Key. It's the feature they launched last year that allows your iPhone through the Wallet app to double as a digital car key for some newer BMW models. There's also a picture that floated around Twitter back in 2014 of Tim Cook actually testing out the BMW i8 in front of Apple's Cupertino headquarters. And there's also been meetings here and there between Apple executives and BMW executives over in Europe.
Now, you last reported that Apple had lost some significant folks in the car department. Where does that leave that department now? How far along is Apple really in developing a car?
Yeah, I don't think anything has changed. Apple's still in the very early exploratory stages. This car is probably 5 years away at the very minimum, and that might be a low ball estimate, to be honest with you. So I would say 5 to 7 or 8 years is what we had reported back in January. The car team has many former Tesla executives, including former Tesla vice presidents in charge of key car components like Tesla's autopilot self-driving software. They hired Steve McManus 2 years ago, who was in charge of car interiors and exterior design at Tesla, and he has a massive team of people working on car hardware. They also hired the former head of manufacturing engineering and drivetrain systems from Tesla as well. And Doug Field, the person who runs the project, was the chief engineer at Tesla and oversaw the development of the Model 3. So you can't really get much more evidence than that Apple is looking to build a Tesla rival down the road.
All right, Mark Gurman, Bloomberg Technology. Thanks so much. We'll continue to watch your reporting on this. Meantime, the video game giant behind the Battlefield and Madden NFL franchises says it's the victim of a cyber attack. According to EA, hackers have stolen game source code and related internal tools. But the company says no player data was taken. We're going to continue to follow the story, especially as the big gaming conference E3 kicks off. Still ahead, the new space race heating up. And there's a startup on the scene that's completely reimagining how rockets are built. It is aiming to take on industry giants like SpaceX and Blue Origin. We're going to hear from the co-founder and CEO of Relativity Space next. This is Bloomberg. Blue Origin will announce this weekend the auction winner who will get to hitch a ride with Jeff Bezos on the New Shepard rocket's first passenger flight to space. Currently, bidding is at $4.8 million. The lucky winner will embark on the 11-minute trip to suborbital space with the billionaire and his brother Mark. Here's a look at the journey to the rocket ride of a lifetime. That's Blue Origin's last test flight of its New Shepard rocket on April 14th, one of 14 successful launches from its West Texas headquarters in the last 6 years.
And touchdown.
The next one will carry Jeff Bezos himself, just 2 weeks after he steps down as the CEO of Amazon.
You see the Earth from space, and it changes you.
Bezos delivered a grand twist in the space race, announcing that he will be on New Shepard's first flight carrying humans into space on July 20th, along with his younger brother, Mark, co-founder of a private equity firm who's always been much more low profile than the richest man in the world.
Seriously? If you're willing, if you want to. God.
If all goes to plan, this will make Bezos the first of the space billionaires to travel to the great beyond, beating SpaceX's Elon Musk, though SpaceX has already shuttled plenty of astronauts to the International Space Station, and Virgin Galactic's Richard Branson, who's scheduled to take his first flight to space later this year. The New Shepard will carry the Bezos brothers and the winner of an online auction for an 11-minute flight. At 47 miles above the Earth, the capsule will separate from the rocket. The passengers will float weightlessly for 3 minutes as the rocket soars another 13 miles to the very edge of space before plunging back to Earth.
Oh, look at that smooth landing.
There's all sorts of problems that we are about to face because for the first time in our civilizational history, going back thousands of years, we're now big compared to the size of the planet. We can fix that problem, but we can fix it in exactly one way, by moving out into the solar system.
What are the chances the unthinkable could happen? Well, there have in fact been 15 total New Shepard launches. Only the first was considered a partial failure. The booster crash landed, but the capsule landed safely, boosting the chances that on July 20th, Bezos' boyhood dream will safely come true. And staying with the private space race, rockets built and flown in days instead of years. That is the mission at Relativity Space, a 3D rocket printing company working to disrupt decades of aerospace technology. The startup just raised $650 million to fuel its plans to take on other private space giants like Elon Musk's SpaceX and Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin. Joining us now to discuss is Relativity co-founder and CEO Tim Ellis, who is also a former engineer at Blue Origin. So, Tim, it's hard to believe that Blue Origin is almost 2 decades old. This company has been around for a long time, and now we are just now getting to this first human flight to space. How would Relativity be different?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Emily. And Relativity was founded 5.5 years ago. We've already raised now over $1.3 billion. We're 3D printing entire rockets. So we've already built our own rocket engine. We've done over 500 tests of that engine. We're actually building our first orbital flight rocket that we plan to launch from Cape Canaveral at the end of this year. So even just less than 6 years into our company founding, we're already launching a rocket to orbit. We're the most pre-sold rocket in history before launch. So we're not just launching satellites to space, we're actually building a whole new tech stack for building and iterating rockets that is based on 3D printing. So we 3D print 95% of our rocket, and we're really at this forefront of an inevitable shift towards software-driven manufacturing, which is going to increase the rate of innovation. And I founded the company with this long-term vision of making humanity multiplanetary on Mars. And I really think it's inevitable. Someone has to be the company to build an industrial base. No one had done it since SpaceX was founded back in 2002. And so there needs to be more companies going after this part of the vision and future of humanity.
So hang on, because we are watching this incredible video of this 3D printing in action. You are setting out, I just want to underscore this, to build 3D print an entire rocket. Break it down for us in a nutshell. How can this even happen?
Yeah, so 3D printing is actually a technology that can build metal parts. So we invented the world's largest metal 3D printers at Relativity. We started in Y Combinator. So we don't just build our own rockets, we actually build the 3D printers as well and have customized them to be able to actually build functional rocket parts. So the whole rocket is 110 feet tall, 7.5 foot diameter. We announced this last week a fully reusable rocket named Terran R that's nearly 20 times larger. So this is 216 feet tall, 16 foot diameter. That whole thing's going to be fully 3D printed as well. And it's these really big Westworld looking 3D printing machines that we've invented that can actually build a rocket from raw material coming in the door to fully complete in only about 60 days. And then 60 days later, do a better version, and 60 days later, a better version than that. So it's really disrupting this paradigm that for the last 60 years, in every aerospace factory around the world, really it's still been true that it's people building products one at a time by hand with hundreds of thousands to millions of individual piece parts in a very complicated supply chain. That's resulted in the aerospace industry being very slow to innovate and create new products. So we really see it being the underpinning of a huge new paradigm that is on the future development of not just rockets, but the aerospace industry writ large.
Now, given that you worked at Blue Origin, were you surprised that Jeff Bezos decided to go on this first flight carrying passengers into space? And what are the odds that this will all happen safely? I mean, your mind goes there to the unthinkable. Yeah. I know it's unlikely, but it goes there.
Yeah, of course. So I've actually got the good fortune. I worked with Jeff when I was at Blue Origin. First started as an intern, actually ended up doing the first metal 3D printing at Blue Origin and started the metal 3D printing division there. So I've remained close friends with Jeff through the years. And yeah, I actually think I worked on New Shepard. So it's a very safe craft. I think they've taken a very rigorous approach to development, and I think for sure he's going to be safe, and I think it's a big vote of confidence in what they're building, and definitely wish them the best. I think it's going to be a fun ride.
A fun ride and a safe ride? Is it all going to go down smoothly?
Yeah, it's definitely going to go down smoothly. I think it's going to be intense, don't get me wrong. I mean, you're launching yourself to space. This is not for the weak-hearted or lack of adventurous. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be successful. And going back to 3D printing, I think over time, because 3D printing is an automation technology, we're going to be able to build more reliable rockets than what is possible with traditional manufacturing in the future as well here at Relativity.
So, quick last question, and I know there's a much longer answer here, but you got 30 seconds. If you could put your bets on Blue Origin or SpaceX or Virgin Galactic, which do you pick?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think if you look over the last 2 decades, SpaceX has been the dominant force that's launched more rockets to orbit and landed rockets and docked with the space station. And we're very fortunate at Relativity. We have a lot of the people that built Private Space 1.0. Across our 400-person team, they've landed and launched over 10,000 rockets at the team in Relativity. And I think there's going to be successive generations of very disruptive space companies that you see really making this future happen in a big way.
Okay, so a long and eventful space race to come. Relativity co-founder and CEO Tim Ellis, fascinating what you're working on. Thanks so much for joining us. And that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to be joined by Jessica Rosenworcel, acting FCC chair, and the CEO of Klarna, Sebastian Semyakowski. Plus, we're going to have a special preview of this weekend's E3 all virtual conference. Thanks for watching. This is Bloomberg.